single little detail of anything common amazed me. Fire wasn't fire, but it was an amazing source of light, dancing on top of a candle. Trees weren't trees, but enormous beings that grew 20 times larger than me, stacked on top of each other. And they protruded from the ground in the most unusual way. And butterflies were the one thing that defied all sense of gravity. And they fluttered their wings so slowly, yet were able to drift in the air so beautifully. But being my 3-year-old self, I also knew that butterflies were something that I must put in my mouth. So, of course, I grabbed it from the air and put it down my mouth. As my grandparents saw it, they immediately panicked, took it out of my mouth, and the only thing they saw was black residue within my mouth. As you can now tell, I am probably fine by now. But for the butterfly, I cannot say the same. Regardless of that, all these 3 things that I talked about, as a child, they were the most amazing things that I could ever come across. They were most magical beings that I'd ever seen, yet now when I grow up, they are the most common things in our daily life that we never even think about. As I grew older, my excitement over the tiniest things began to subside. Forks, spoons, and the infamous chopsticks were no longer tools that were able to get you food without getting your hands dirty, but merely just utensils. Cars were not amazing vortexes of speed, but rather just transportation to get you from point A to point B. Pencils and crayons were not things that were able to write down and create history with them and encapsulate the past, but rather just something that we use daily, right now, even as some of you are probably using. And light bulbs never really had the same spark as they did before. Regardless, as people age, their mindset changes, and I acknowledge that. However, I believe that the most detrimental thing is that as we age, our creativity and our imagination diminishes. A study a while back was taken, and they tested on a bunch of kindergartners what it means to be a genius. Their definition of what it means to be a genius was, how can people solve one problem, but solve it multiple different ways? As they tested on the kindergartners did surprisingly very well. A majority actually met the standard of being a genius. But as people grew older, as they tested elementary, high school, then college students, then full-grown adults, the percentage, as you can imagine, got smaller. And soon it was only very small in comparison to the kindergartners. Now, you may be asking, how so? But in my experience, during school, when they only teach you what is right and what is wrong, when they only give you a worksheet of this is the only answer that this could be, this diminishes our imagination of asking the end point and the end game of how to get to more imagination. We should be asking, instead of, is this it? We should be asking, why is this it? And how did that come to be that answer? See, when I was little, as I said before, I used to have a lot of curiosity, a lot of imagination. Everything that I saw, everything that was around me in my environment was magical. But now, as I grew up, they just seemed normal to me. All of the things that I use today, I often take for granted, and it's unconscious now. So what I'm trying to say is that instead of taking things for granted, we need to be able to ask the questions of how. of why, of when, of all the questions, ask questions, ask questions, ask questions. You shouldn't be thinking, oh, this is the answer, but rather, why is this the answer, and how are the other ways that I can solve this problem? You see, Albert Einstein once said, logic takes you from A to B, but imagination can take you everywhere. Thank you.
Thank you so very much. The genius of it all, asking that why. You have 1 minute, students, to complete your evaluation.